Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live broadcast, Understanding the Advantages of Microwave Extraction Technology for Environmental Laboratories. I'm Megan LaRue, the Managing Editor of Spectroscopy, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. We are pleased to bring you this educational web seminar presented by Spectroscopy and sponsored by Milestone. Over 20,000 customers worldwide utilize Milestone's products for microwave acid digestion and solvent extraction, synthesis and ashing, as well as acid purification systems and direct mercury analyzers for solid, liquid, and gas samples. The Milestone team brings together a vision for the future of science, a passion for technology, and knowledge of applications with the ultimate goal of helping chemists with research and quality control. Milestone's patented technology provides the operator with unsurpassed safety and performance capability through the highest temperature and pressure controls, enhanced safety features, ease of use, and fast cooling, bringing efficiency in an advanced instrumentation laboratory to a new level. Their consultative partnership approach and the trust of their customers have led Milestone to becoming an industry expert in a wide variety of applications involving some of the most challenging matrices. Milestone's mission is to provide laboratories worldwide with the safest, most technologically advanced, and highest quality instrumentation for sample preparation, enabling users to render their activity easier, faster, and safer. For more information, please visit them on the web at milestonesi.com. Before we begin, we have a few important announcements to make. This webcast is designed to be interactive, and we encourage you to ask questions during the event. You can submit questions by typing them in the Q&A box, which can be found on the right-hand side of your screen. You can enlarge the slide window by clicking on the small green icon in the upper right-hand corner of the slide window, or by hovering your mouse over the lower right-hand corner and dragging the window to the desired size. The slides will advance automatically during the event. If you have any technical problems viewing or hearing this presentation, please click on the question mark help widget in the dock at the bottom of your presentation window. Before I introduce today's speaker, I'd like to ask our audience to participate in a brief polling question. Please click directly on your screen to submit your answer. Here's the question. What type of extraction technique are you currently using? Soxhlet, sonication, accelerated solvent extraction, microwave-assisted extraction, or other? Once again, the question is, what type of extraction technique are you currently using? Soxhlet, sonication, accelerated solvent extraction, microwave-assisted extraction, or other? Thank you for participating in our poll. I would now like to introduce today's speakers. We are pleased to be joined today by Alicia Lebert and Joyce Kurtgasser. Alicia received her BS in chemistry from SUNY Plattsburgh in 1984 and has more than 26 years of environmental laboratory experience, including 20-plus years of instrumental experience with GCMS, GCECD, NPD, and FPD detectors, to include a number of EPA methodologies such as 8270D, as well as pesticide residue methods. She has experience in organic preparation methods in a variety of matrices, such as water, soil, and drinking water, using appropriate EPA methodologies, as well as a variety of pesticide residue methods. Her current responsibilities include management of the organic prep department at Enviro Test and oversight of secondary data review for the volatiles department. Additional responsibilities include the analysis of water and soil samples for semivolatiles. Joyce received her BS in chemistry and a minor in mathematics from the University of Montana in 1987. She has more than 20 years' experience in analytical chemistry, quality control, and laboratory operations in various industries, including pharmaceutical and specialty chemical manufacturing. Her experience includes method development, data acquisition, and interpretation on a variety of analytical instruments, including HPLC, GC, GPC, FTIR, NMR, and UV-Vis. Her current responsibilities at Milestone include managing the mercury and organic chemistry line, including extraction. She works closely with customers and provides technical and application support for sales and marketing. Thank you both for joining us today. Joyce, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Megan, for the introduction. And again, I would like to extend a welcome to everyone for joining us today. So for the first part of this webinar, I'm going to go over the extraction techniques. I know everybody on here is probably very familiar with them, so I'm just going to quickly touch base on them and compare a couple of the techniques out there. And then I would like to talk a little bit more about a microwave-assisted extraction. For those of you who aren't familiar or have implemented this into your laboratory, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how it works and how it can benefit your laboratory. And then I'm going to go and introduce our Ethos X, that's Milestone's microwave platform for extraction. I'm going to tell you a bit about its operation and some of the unique features. And then I would like to introduce our brand new FastEX rotor. We designed this rotor specifically for the extraction of environmental techniques or contaminants. So here you see your typical list of environmental contaminants. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm sure you guys live these every day. But these are basically the contaminants and pesticides that are being extracted from soils, clay, sediments, sludges, and solid wastes. And for most of these contaminants, you're going to follow this typical processing procedure before you do your actual analysis on your GC or your GCMS. And it is going to be based, of course, on your your contaminant and your referenced analytical procedure. But as you notice, the first step is in sample prep is your extraction. And as everyone knows, this is one of the most critical steps that you're going to perform that's going to ensure that you're going to get accurate results. And so, again, some of the techniques that are being used, of course, your classical approach, which we consider to be the Soxhlet, sonication, your wrist shaker. And then we also have other approaches that some laboratories might be using, the accelerated solvent extraction and your microwave-assisted extraction. So just quickly to go over some of the advantages and disadvantages of the Soxhlet, one of the classical approaches is one of the advantages is that it is a low initial investment. It is regarded as a very standard method. As you can see, it's a basic setup, and there's no need for separate filtration. Now, disadvantage, as you can see, you can extract many samples at once, so there is a low throughput, and in some cases, it can take up to 2 days to perform these extractions. It does require a large amount of solvent, up to 500 mils in some cases. And because it is not in an enclosed environment, there is that potential human exposure to solvent. As you can see, you do need the adequate ventilation for this apparatus. So typically it's done in a fume hood. It is a little labor intensive, and it only has the capability of performing extraction. So next we're going to look at one of the other approaches, accelerated solvent extraction. As you can see, one of the advantages, you can do different volume cells. It's a much smaller footprint, and it's automated. Disadvantages, it does have sequential processing. So basically that means you can only do one sample at a time. You can set up 24 samples. It can only accommodate a small sample amount. So because it is one sample at a time, it is has a low productivity. It does require a little bit of training, some expertise required, and because it can do filtration, there are clogging issues, and it does require air and nitrogen for operating. So why would there be an interest in implementing microwave extraction in your laboratory if you haven't already done so? I mean, it's been around for a long time. Well, there is that method. It's EPA 3546 is compliant with. And laboratories, because of the competitive nature, they're starting to look to increase productivity, and they definitely need to reduce their cost per analysis. And another benefit would be is if they could introduce a technology that could be used for multiple applications besides just extraction. So for those of you who aren't familiar with microwave-assisted extraction, it's a technique, again, used for extracting, your pesticides and contaminants from your soils, solids, semi-solids, and it's done with liquid solvents. And this is all done usually in an enclosed vessel. We use high temperature and pressure. And again, definitely at higher temperature, you're going to increase the efficiency of your extraction process. And because of its compliance with EPA 3546, you can use it to replace Soxhlet, sonication, boiling, wrist shaker, and other extraction techniques. So the benefits you have at working at high temperature and pressure in an enclosed vessel is that you can increase the boiling point 2 to 3 times above the normal boiling point of that solvent. And so with this, of course, you're going to increase the solubility of your analyte. And then again, you're going to lower the viscosity of your solvent. So it's going to be able to permeate into your sample matrix, mostly in this case, your soils, much easier. So again, when you're at elevated temperatures, of course, you're going to have better solubility. For instance, here, anthracine's 15 times more soluble at a higher temp than it is at the 50 C. Again, you're going to overcome your matrix effects. It's going to be able to penetrate and diffuse into your matrix quicker, so that's going to reduce your whole extraction time. So again, just briefly, the result of this whole approach is you're going to reduce your extraction time significantly, as you will see, and you're going to enhance your extraction efficiency. So just quickly, here's a table. We're just going to compare some of the extraction techniques out there. So if you can see, for microwave-assisted extraction, we can accommodate anywhere from 2 all the way up to 30 grams, which we'll talk a little bit about later. We can have a solvent volume of anywhere from 15 to 50 mils. But where you're going to see the significant difference over the other techniques is that you can extract about 24 samples in 40 minutes. So again, that's really going to increase your productivity. It's going to be very high for how many samples you can get extracted in an 8-hour day. It is a medium investment, but when you add all these factors together for reduced solvent, ease of use, the amount of time, is that you're really going to reduce your cost per sample compared to all the other classical and other approaches. Again, here we're comparing the typical sample processing time. So you can see, because of that reduced extraction time, your microwave-assisted extraction is going to significantly take less time to process 24 samples. So at Milestone, we've been in the microwave technology for almost 30 years, and we are a solution provider. And what our goal is that we really want to make life easier for the chemist. And basically how we can do that is for sample preparation using microwave. So what we did is that we worked with environmental laboratories, and we wanted to listen to their challenges, the challenges that they have with regulations and compliance, proficiency tests. They even have audits occasionally. And we wanted to listen to their demands and needs. And what we kept on hearing is that they need to produce quality data. And one of the most important things for anybody working in the lab is you need it to be reproducible. Nobody has time to do a retest. And you definitely have to be compliant. So you have to be within an acceptable extraction percentage. And what we were hearing over is they really needed something that was easy to use. It was definitely going to be a low cost, reduced solvent. They needed a fast turnaround time to be able to stay competitive in today's market. And they definitely had to be approved methodology in order to be compliant. So what we did is we listened to the input, and we worked closely with environmental labs, and we, in combination with the Ethos X, in combination with the FastEX rotor, we developed and designed this rotor with the input from the environmental laboratories. So to briefly talk about some of the features that the Ethos X offers, it's our microwave platform. It offers a dual magnetron, and this works simultaneously to provide a total of 1,900 watts. It's equipped with a diffuser, so what that's going to do is going to produce a homogeneous microwave field within the cavity, and that's going to eliminate hot spots. And then one thing, it's a very robust system. It's an 18-gauge stainless steel construction. We take safety very seriously here, and it's coated in Teflon. So with that, we're able to offer the 5-year corrosion warranty. We have a colored terminal, which you'll see off to the right. And with that, we have an easy control software. And what's very unique about that is that you have full traceability of the extraction process. And you're also going to be able to transfer your data to a LIMS program if you wanted to. It has touch screen capabilities and built-in libraries. And then on another added feature is we use a contactless temperature sensor. Now that is going to measure and monitor all 24 positions on this rotor during the extraction process. And so at the heart is our new FastEX-24 Rotor. As you see, it's a 24 position. We offer 100 ml disposable glass vials. And what's very unique is our Weflon material, our vessel material, that I'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide. We have Teflon caps and covers, and it is a very high throughput rotor, 24 samples, and is very easy to handle. So as you can see in this slide here, we offer a capping gun. Now we use that to close and open the vessels, and mostly that's going to, for closing, assure that all vessels are sealed properly. So there won't be any unnecessary venting or any loss of solvent during the extraction. So again, it will be reproducible in all 24 vessels. Now for the disposable glass vials, there's no cleaning involved. They're disposable, so you don't have to worry about memory effect. You're not going to have any contamination. They are an extremely low consumable cost. They do accommodate 100 mils, and the reason why we need the large volume is so we're able to accommodate that 30-gram sample, which some labs are going to need for their low level of quantitation. And so with the 30 grams, we accommodate about 50 mils, and you're going to need that to assure a very efficient extraction and without losing any solvent over the size of the vessels if it was smaller. And so one of the things that's very innovative about this rotor is our Weflon vessel material. As you can see, it's that black vessel, and it's located inside of a Teflon sleeve. Now, what's very unique about this is that it does absorb microwave energy. And so how that's going to benefit you is that's going to produce a very homogeneous field or heat to your vessel and your solvent in your sample. And another benefit of it is going to balance the different conditions that can exist between vessel to vessel. Because we all know not all soils are going to be created equal. Some of them are going to have a slightly different composition, or they're going to have a different moisture content. And so that's going to help compensate for those differences. And then, again, that's all going to result in that reproducible results. And another unique design, as you're going to see here, is our Teflon cap with the inverted cone. And as you can see in the bottom picture, it fits right over the lip of that glass vial. And what is unique about it, so of course we all know that Teflon does not absorb microwave energy. So what that's going to do is it's going to promote condensation of the solvent vapor. So as the solvent vapors rise, it's going to hit that cone and it's going to condense back into the vial. So it's not going to spill over the vial into the Weflon vessel. And as you can see to your right, here is typically what our monitor will look like as the extraction process is occurring. As you can see, I don't know if you can see your color there, it's that dark orange is T2. So that is the actual temperature that is being monitored and measured. Underneath that, what you can't see is the program temperature. So you can see it follows exactly what that program is supposed to be. But what is unique, as you'll see, is the black, that's the microwave power that's being supplied. So what we have is we have a PID controller, and that will regulate the microwave power to maintain that set temperature. So what it does is it reads the temperature, and as you can see, it'll adjust the microwave power accordingly. And it will do this from the very start of the extraction to the very end. Again, easy method selection, touch screen. We do have built-in methods, and they're all based on moisture content of the samples approximately, because I know it's very hard to determine the exact moisture content. And again, with each method, we do offer a sample prep included, so there really is no work, just press a button. So to quickly, just to go over the Ethos X workflow, as you can see, 3-step sequence: load, run, open. More of a visual here. You load the sample, you load the solvent, you seal it. You can do it by hand, place it in the rotor, and then use our capping tool again to make sure they're all properly sealed. And then you run the program, 40 minutes. And then you open the vessels, you can pull out the glass tubes, and then that rotor is ready for your next 24 samples. So to break it down time-wise to perform this extraction, so to load the sample from the closing and the filtration, so your total time is going to be about 94 minutes. So that's about 4 minutes a sample. So with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Alicia, and she's going to describe her experience with microwave-assisted extraction.
Thank you, Meg, for the introduction, and thank you, Joyce, for having the opportunity to tell EnviroTest's story. I think in order to understand our microwave experience, you need to know a little bit about our history. The laboratory was established in 1974 as a water testing laboratory primarily. It eventually expanded over the years to include water and soil. We had the full gamut of organic and inorganic testing going on, as well as microbiology. We did do some drinking water testing as well, so that included volatiles and organic prep as far as the organics department. Then the laboratory was sold in 1997 and was repurchased in 2007. So that's really where our story begins regarding microwave. We had left off before the lab was purchased, where we were using sonication. We actually used some microwave in the metals department, but after the repurchase, we no longer had an organic department. That had been tests were being done elsewhere. So we did have a volatiles department, but we had to rebuild the organic prep department. So with just a few personnel, how were we going to do this? So that was primary in reestablishing EnviroTest as a full-service laboratory. So that in itself, as everyone knows, is a significant challenge. In addition to that, we wanted to serve the same customer base that we always did, which involves, in general, municipalities, industrial, environmental consulting firms, and homeowners. So the full gamut. And with that, we wanted to make sure not only were we going to stay with our tried and true of testing wastewater, groundwater, and drinking water, we wanted to expand certainly our organic prep department to include soil, and then followed with that TCLP extracts. So we had a bit of a mountain to climb there. However, we had a lot of experience, so we began with a few personnel. Again, we wanted to, how do we also satisfy what the marketplace was demanding, which was fast turnaround times. We needed to keep our costs low. We had space and personnel limited. And we needed to also, how could we increase our profitability? We knew that by taking on soil extraction that we could increase our profitability for sure. So there we began. So we looked into the other choices out there, like Joyce has explained. We had all had some experience with Soxhlet, and we also had experience with sonication. None of those seemed like a good fit for us. We were not going to expand our laboratory space. However, we had to figure out how are we going to provide these tests for our clients with those quick turnarounds. So microwave was out there. We had some metals experience with it, which was positive. So we were thinking, what do we do? So we did our research. We did some actual measurements of how much solvent volume we were going to use, how much drying reagent, sodium sulfate, we would be using, and how could we also reduce our concentration time? Because again, as you're building back up a department, you have limited other equipment as well. So obviously, through the way Joyce has described very expertly, it does save time, labor, and reagent costs. There's no doubt about it. So we made the microwave choice because it would increase our testing flexibility. It would allow us to expand our capacity. And we would also, just by using less reagents, we have less chance of any interference from any kind of background from, say, your solvents. So that was minimized as well, so a very attractive choice. In addition, we knew there would be no cross-contamination. So what was the impact on the company and the department for choosing microwave? Well, in a very short time, with a small amount of people, we were able to provide semi-volatile analysis, pesticides, PCBs, and diesel range organics. So that tells you something right there. If you also want to keep in mind, we were still building back up the organic prep department to offer the same extraction services we did for water. So we had a lot going on. But that provided the flexibility and the efficiency that we needed. We also, in addition, took on other tests in that department which were not typical, such as, let's say, detergents, grease and oils, also providing support to other departments. So I can't say enough about how that was a very good choice for us, certainly. So I wanted to give you an idea of EnviroTest's typical sample batch. We do full rotors for sure, but very often we have to have 12 to 24 samples in a rotor. Maybe some of them are semi-VOAs and some of them are DROs. We may also need to get a run of pest PCBs in while we're still taking care of water extracts going on in the laboratory as well. So very often our batch is 12 to 24 samples. So when I put down the time span of 4 to 6 hours, I would like to just clarify that this is time over the course of the day where you are involved with the microwave to some regard, and I'll get more into the details later. First of all, we simply take those disposable glass sleeves, which are very wonderful. We pop them into let's say, a test tube tray. We travel to our balance. We are inspecting our soil samples to make sure, excluding rocks and large twigs, making sure there's no metal in the microwave, of course, which is not typical of soil samples, but occasionally you might if someone's clearing a site. We also, some labs I know add a drying agent, especially if they're grinding down the sample, which we don't typically have to do for our particular clients. You can read method 3546. It gives you a little more information about that. We spike directly onto the soil with our surrogate. We also then add our laboratory control spikes and our matrix spikes. And then we add our solvent system. And I refer to the solvent system importantly because method 3546 suggests that you use a nonpolar and both a polar solvent to assist with the extraction. The polar will absorb the microwave just like it would if it were water in there. And then the nonpolar assists with the solubility of the organic compounds that you're extracting. So that combination together, you get very good recovery. So here's an example of what we use for solvent systems. Methylene chloride and acetone for semi-VOAs and DROs. We use hexane and acetone for pest PCBs. And then we add that amount of solvent. Let's say you're doing 30 grams. You put, like Joyce mentioned, 50 mils of solvent. And then we do our microwave run. It is then followed by just gravity filtration through a filter funnel into our concentration tube. At the same time, we're passing it through a small amount of sodium sulfate, let's say 10 to 15 grams. And that total rinse, even rinsing the glass sleeves out to quantitatively transfer, amounts to approximately, I would say, 70 to 100 mils of solvent, depending on the type of sample. They rinse very easily, and the sodium sulfate acts like a filtration in itself. We then put them on our rapid VAP, and we concentrate to 1 mil, and you may or may not have to do a solvent exchange. If you have pest PCBs, you will do a solvent exchange, at least we do. We add a little more hexane at the end, and we blow it down to get rid of the acetone, and then if it's methylene chloride acetone, we don't do a solvent exchange for that. It's not necessary because it's going onto the mass spec. Some of the things that are not obvious are the added values that come with microwave. For instance, if I'm taking that 4 to 6 hour window for the time span and just give you a very generous amount of time that I'm putting towards each task, just to give you an idea how I break it down. as a person that, we have to organize our organic prep department, and this is typically how it's done. So it takes about an hour to weigh soils, spike, add your solvent, cap your vessels. In addition, then when that's ready and you've got them loaded in the rotor, it takes no time at all to set that run up, pick your run that you're going to choose. And yes, it is a 40-minute run time. There is a little cool down time. The fan continues to run, so it's very efficient. Cools down very quickly. By the time you unload the vessels, I would say about an hour and a half tops that things are in the microwave and before you actually have to tend to them again. And only if, this is a clincher, only if you really need to get to them right away, which is the other flexibility I'll get to as I follow from this slide. So it takes about an hour to filter. I would consider that setup, filtration, and breakdown of the filter apparatus because someone else may need to use the hood space. Then we put them on a rapid VAP. We have about an hour of concentration, and after that, we manually take those up to 1 ml final volume. We may or may not add internal standard, and they're ready for analysis. So that encompasses over the course of 4 to 6 hours. You can produce these samples start to finish out of the microwave and concentrated and ready for the instrument. So I would estimate about a third of that time is actually available for other tests or tasks, and that happens frequently in our environmental laboratory. However, if you're trying to push through large projects, no problem at all. That you can easily accomplish many rotorfuls of samples. You can stagger types of samples. You can prepare them together, decide to do separate ramping runs, the way it ramps up or how long you hold it at a particular temperature. So that's very nice. It does bear mentioning that after the organic department got on its feet as far as microwaving, the metals department went back to microwave to do soils and TCLPs for the same exact reasons that we did. And number one, we wanted to be able to satisfy those soil remediation clients that needed answers in the field quickly. And so we appreciate the efficiency and the flexibility that it provides to the metals department as well. So on our typical day, when I talk about the efficiency and flexibility of the microwave, some of the things that may not occur to someone right away, but if you have any kind of environmental laboratory, you know that hood space is critical, glassware is critical, personnel is critical, and evaporation equipment, all of that. Plus you need to sometimes change things on a dime. All of a sudden something else becomes a priority. So what do you do about that? The best part of the microwave is that you can put those samples in the microwave, tend to them when you want to. They can also be removed from the microwave and another rotor could go in, or you could take them out of the rotor and they can be sitting on the counter ready for filtering, and you can do it when your time allows. Everything is very secure and nothing's going to escape from those vessels, so it's really a really nice flexibility. In addition, that allows us to better use of our other shared equipment. Like I said, our evaporation equipment, so we get that timing down correct. In addition, anyone can start your preparation and someone else can pick it up very easily. It's very smooth and very simple steps, and training is very simple. And I can't say it's a pleasure to use. So with that, we were able to take on a lot of large projects and accomplish those as well in between our typical routine samples, and we can have 3 or 4 types of analyses due in one day, things we got in the day before, or we're working on big projects that all fits together very nicely. And again, our personnel are still doing water extractions and taking care of some of the other types of tests that are happening in the laboratory as well. Some of the things that we also appreciate about the microwave is that it's reliable. It's just It's always performs well. Occasionally, if you have a tough sample or a tough matrix, you may need to repeat something, but that's no different than if you had any other type of extraction. But in general, it works well for a lot of different types of soil matrices and solid matrices. I'll provide some slides here of Milestone's data that I concur with. And I'd like to just talk a little bit about the FastEX-24 Rotor and its improvements with the Ethos X, things that really make a difference. For instance, the 100 mil glass sleeves provide a larger sample size. So right there, anyone knows that does environmental work. If you're not battling to try to run the lowest standard possible, the best thing you can do to increase, as long as it's within your method steps, you are allowed to, use more sample. So for instance, a typical sample size for 8270 is 30 grams. So you don't have to try to run a 15-gram sample with a 5 ppm standard. Instead, you can go with your comfortable 10 ppm standard and a 30-gram sample instead. It also, in that same the same flexibility, you can use any sample size that you want. If something seems very large and fluffy, say a sludge cake, what do you do about that? You want to make sure the solvent system is coating your sample, so maybe you would back off a little bit on that, give it a run through of something you knew was highly contaminated ahead of time. If there were concerns about free product or a lot of volatiles, you can also back off on the sample size as well. So that's very nice. In addition, the fact that there is no thermocouple, that it's doing contactless temperature control, it's taking the temperature of all the vessels and adjusting accordingly. You don't have to worry about which sample has the most moisture. Just like any type of microwave, that's going to heat up faster. So before this rotor, we had to use, you had to know the percent solid or had a pretty good idea which one was going to be the highest in moisture, and you were going to use that as your reference vessel. All doable, but this takes the worry out of that, and that I appreciate in the new rotor and new microwave. So again, the vessels are very easy to use, and the disposable glass sleeves are just save so much time and labor, and very affordable. So the microwave too, it continues to cool after the run. It doesn't just stop and sit there and wait. So they're ready to take out of the vessels very quickly. And again, easy to use control pad and software with that. You can store your runs. You can look at what's going on. You have choices already built in. You can build your own methods. So all of that leads to some of these reliable performances that I've shown you here. I have a few slides. I'm going to click through those fairly quickly. But as you can see, some of the percent recoveries are really, really very good and comparable to the other methods, both acid and base. We have our PAHs as well. And I find that, again, a very reliable tool for organic extractions. And similarly, pesticides and PCBs as well as diesel range organics recover just as well. So in summation, regarding our microwave experience, it was essential to our growth, certainly, and our mission of being able to focus on what our customers needed to expand our laboratory and to provide continued expansion into other testing areas. So not only did we rebuild our organic prep department, we maintained our volatiles department, metals, wet chem, microbiology, because we were able to still do it in the same laboratory. The other space that we would have dedicated to Soxhlet or sonication were now being used for other things. We expanded even into the herbicide area, which we hope to be using for microwave soon. That's our next hurdle. And then we also were able to expand into our drinking water capabilities. So that has allowed us to be a full-service laboratory again and provide rapid, reliable testing. Now, the the growth and profitability contribution of the microwave continues to happen for us, and that's what's giving us the flexibility to keep growing and to keep providing what we need to our clients. So I'd like to bring it back to Joyce at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Alicia.
Okay.
All right. So just to quickly summarize the Ethos X in combination with the FastEX Rotor, again, we can extract 24 samples simultaneously. As you saw, it's incredible and heard. It's incredibly easy to use. We do offer the large disposable glass vials of 100 ml that able to accommodate that 30-gram sample size for the low levels of quantitation. And because of that Weflon material, we have a very homogeneous heat that's being supplied to your solvent and sample. Again, we have that contactless temperature control that all 24 vessels. Again, as you saw, very minimal solvent usage, a very low cost per sample. You have a very fast turnaround time. And all this is based on the official method, US EPA 3546. So before we get to our question and answer section, I just want to introduce Milestone's product line. Not only do we offer the Ethos X for environmental samples, but we also have an Ethos X for natural products. In addition, we have a microwave platform for digestion for the analysis of metals. We have a clean chemistry line, which is used for purifying acids, some solvents, and for cleaning glassware. We also have a direct mercury analyzer. In addition, we also have a a microwave ashing platform. And so now I would like to hand the presentation back over to Megan.
Thank you, Alicia and Joyce, for such informative presentations. Before we get started on the question and answer session, I would like to remind our audience how to submit questions. You can submit questions by typing them in the Q&A tab, which can be found on the right-hand side of the presentation window. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Our first question is for Alicia. How do you clean your vessels?
Okay, that's a very good question. Actually, they don't require cleaning. That's the best part. If you're using your glass sleeves, there should be no carryover solvent that would be of concern or contamination. And that's, unless you accidentally spilled something in your vessel, which you could do a quick solvent rinse, that doesn't typically happen because the sleeve fits perfectly well in there. And we use our vessels when we're weighing out, we separate them from the carousel. Someone may do differently, but in general, you don't need to clean your vessels.
Okay, the next question is for Joyce. Why do you need the large volume 100 ml glass vessels?
Okay, as I was saying, the reason why we offer the 100 ml disposable glass vials is because to accommodate that 30-gram sample size, because to get an efficient extraction, you're going to need at least 50 mils of solvent. And then when you add those together, you're going to need enough headspace in that vial where you're not going, because when the reflux is occurring, if you didn't have the appropriate amount of headspace, your solvent is just going to spill over the sides of your vessel, and then you're going to get very low reproducible results and not a very good extraction.
Okay, the next question is for Alicia. Are there any limitations to the type of solid matrix for the microwave?
I would first refer you to method 3546. That has a very broad description of all types of solids that could be microwavable. However, in general, the only thing that we look for, again, it's a rarity for our clients, is to find something like a chunk of metal in there. If you're not sure, you can use a magnetic stir rod to just place it in the soil. Other than, typical static adherence to that, you generally don't find a piece of metal. If you do, you can obviously remove it, but we've rarely ever had to reject a sample for that. The only other thing that we keep an eye out for is that we don't include, I think Joyce mentioned this, large rocks or like a big twig or something like that. You want to get a nice homogeneous representation of the soil. If you do have rocks that are that's all the sample is, then there are instructions for grinding in method 3546. So I would say there really aren't any limitations for an environmental laboratory.
Okay, and the next question is for Joyce. What kind of support do you offer regarding method startup for a company making the transition to microwave?
Well, that's one of the things at Milestone, and customer support is very important to us, and it's a priority. And we do have a full service team and an apps team here in Shelton, and of course me personally. And we're here, before a customer decides to buy and during the transition of using microwave-assisted extraction. And we're also available after for any issues that might arise or any new applications that they might want to try. And in addition, we also have an R&D facility in Europe, and they're continually developing new applications, and we gladly share those with our customers.
And the next question is for Alicia. Do you need to set up any ventilation for the Ethos X?
Yes. As far as ventilation, there is an exhaust duct, and then you attach that to either externally to some type of venting in your ceiling that you may have, or you could vent it to an adjacent hood. But I would say in general it does not need to be in a hood, and I only say that because hood space is so vital that it's a very small hose that would come out of there, and it has a fan that is removing anything. So therefore, you don't need a hood, but you do need some ventilation, and I think Milestone can describe that a little bit better.
Okay, the next question is for Joyce. How do you control pressure in each vessel to avoid rupture or explosion?
So, of course, we do have, a pressure control outside the vessels, but these are mostly what we do is we monitor the temperature and we apply the appropriate amount of microwave energy to maintain that temperature. So there is no need to monitor the pressure inside of the vessel. Of course, for safety reasons, we do monitor outside into the microwave cavity. So this is all based on control of temperature. And we both know pressure and temperature are proportional to one another. So if you control the temperature, you control the pressure.
Okay. The next question is for Alicia. Can we use it for SVOC in soil?
Yes, absolutely, and that's primarily what we use it for. We sometimes have the full list of 8270 components, and very often some of our clients have a more limited list, but it's suitable for all of that. So yes, semivolatiles and diesel range organics can actually go into the same rotor run if you're following what we use for a solvent system, which is methylene chloride acetone. And then again, pest PCBs can also be done similarly in a hexane acetone solvent system and their own rotor run. So yes.
Okay, the next question is for Joyce. Is there any risk for cross-contamination? We use the ASE 350 today for PCDD/F in soil, and cross-contamination is a huge problem.
Okay, so I can definitely answer the cross-contamination. I'm a little unfamiliar for the application. Maybe Alicia can help with that, but there is no risk for cross-contamination for one thing of the disposable glass vials, but each of these are in, it's its own vessel. So they're not exposed to one another, so there is no chance for cross-contamination.
And the only thing that I would like to add is that, in general, we don't have any cross-contamination going on. It's more the possibility of any cross-contamination really has nothing to do with the microwave. It may be to do with other systems that you have going on, so that's worry-free as far as that goes. And if you were, like I said, if you were to have some kind of spillage of actual pieces of soil into your vessel accidentally, you can certainly, rinse that out appropriately. But in general, it's not something that you have to do.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Joyce. What is the cost for the disposable glass tubes?
So for the disposable glass vials, there's a very low-cost consumable. They're about under $1 a piece.
Okay. The next question I think is for Alicia. Which solvents would you suggest for PAH?
Yes, for PAH, the same solvents that you use for any semi-volatile would be appropriate. We also happen to do low-level PAH work, so it's actually it's a very efficient extractor of methylene chloride and acetone. But again, I can point to the fact that it does suggest that you have a polar and a nonpolar. Let's say, for instance, that your methylene chloride certainly may work, but it is really suggested in 3546 that you use a solvent system to just ensure that if there's any type of moisture on the soil, that you facilitate the extraction of that because you have a polar one in there, as well as the fact that you need a polar solvent to absorb the microwave energy. So yes, the same solvent system that I use for semi-vol is fine.
Okay. The next question is for Joyce. Can you explain the difference between the environmental and natural product microwave digesters?
Yeah, so basically it's the same microwave platform, but the one for natural products is outfitted a little differently with a different type of glassware, as they could see from the picture. You could probably get a better idea of it visit our website. But it is, in most cases, it's a solvent-free extraction, but it is the same platform that's being used, just a different setup inside of the microwave cavity.
Okay, the next question is for Alicia. When we use it for PCB, then SVOC, you don't think there will be contamination?
Correct. I can tell you there won't be contamination. If you have something that is unusually high, say to do with PCBs, in general, if you're doing, first of all, your glass sleeve, which contains the sample, which butts up against the top of the vessel, and if you're going through your typical extraction and you're rinsing your glass sleeve, you throw that glass sleeve out. Okay, so now when you go to use your vessel again, you're using a new glass sleeve. If for any reason you thought something touched the top of that, the Teflon part of that vessel, and I think, Joyce, you could probably add some more to that. You could always rinse it with an appropriate solvent to ensure. We have never had problems with contamination like that. So, like I said, absolutely no problem.
Yes, no, there is not a problem with contamination.
Okay. The next question is for either one of you. Can we use this microwave for natural samples, such as plants and fruits?
I can go ahead and I'll answer that one. Again, that's our Ethos X for natural products for fruits and fragrances. And if you need more information, you can contact me or you can visit our website and learn more about that.
Okay, unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank the audience for attending and participating in today's event. I would also like to thank our sponsor, Milestone, for making today's educational webcast possible. Today's program will be available for on-demand viewing through September 2018. You will receive an email from Spectroscopy alerting you when this webcast will be available for replay. We invite you to forward that announcement to any colleagues who may have missed today's live event. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.